Houses don't kill people. People kill people. Hello, Huge Movie Fanatic Nate coming at you once again, completing, I'm actually kind of happy to say at this point, finishing up for now my reviews of the Amityville movies. Kind of had my fill for the time being, so I'm kind of glad to be at the end of this little venture. Coming at you to review the remake, Amityville, the Amityville Horror, basically 2005. This is a DVD that I got previously viewed after the fact, back in the day. Not too sure why I bought it, but whatever. I guess at the time, well, even still now, it wasn't too terribly common to have like an A-list kind of an Amityville movie. So I don't know. I mean, I don't completely hate it. I guess that's why I bought it. So back in 2005. In conjunction, kind of as a promo thing with the theatrical release of this movie, MGM released Amityville Trilogy. I showed you that DVD box set on my review of the Amityville Horror. It's really kind of a cool box set. It's got a fourth disc about the supposed BS true nature of the story and stuff, but that particular release, or at least the one I got, included some, what I don't know, was it called movie money or some kind of stuff like that or whatever, where you could basically, you know, it paid up to a certain dollar amount, you could basically get in to see the Amityville Horror remake for free. So I probably would not have gone to see it in the theater. I actually saw the remake in the theater had I not had that movie money or cash, whatever the hell it was called back then. I don't know if they still do that stuff or not now, or still do that stuff now or not. I don't buy many new movies anymore. So I don't know, but so I was lucky to be able to see this movie for free back in the day. I think if memory serves, this was the second movie. You know, Platinum Dunes' Michael Bay venture of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake was I think a pretty big success for them. So then obviously they're probably thinking of, well, what else can they do? And it's funny that they picked this movie to be their follow-up project because, you know, unlike Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and stuff, the Amityville franchise wasn't necessarily very popular or well known at the time. So it's kind of weird that they chose this for the second movie. But having the free, the free pass to see this movie for free, I saw it and I rewatched it just recently within the past week, and you know my view on the beginning and most of the movie actually is exactly the same. Instantly when the movie started with the kind of the DeFeo murders or whatever at the beginning of the movie, I was just like, oh my god, this is like so just theatrical, and it's almost like a you know how you see a stupid supposed TV show and it's like, this is a recreation of the crime scene or the recreation of the event or whatever. I mean, the beginning of this movie with the guy shooting up the family, it looks just so, it looks like a recreation of a recreation of a recreation. It's so just theatrical and just non-realistic and just so done in such an uninteresting way, whereas the first movie, I thought, the original movie I thought was done in a much better way, where you just saw, glimpses of stuff and a rifle coming into the frame and shooting. And this movie, you just, from the very beginning, you just see the whole guy, his face, and he's like got a TV on in front of him, and it's like, catch him, kill him, or whatever the hell it says, a voice telling him to kill him. And it's just so horribly, completely uncreatively done, the beginning of this movie when he shoots his family up. And not to mention only that, but they do this horrible seizure-inducing, flash, like lightning flashes and all this crap during the shooting, and it's just so stupid. And once you get done with the, him shooting the family up, you do this thing which they did, very similar to the beginning of the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where they do this, old 70s style looking TV reporting and all this kind of stuff and crap. So, like, instantly from off the bat, when the movie starts, you're just like, oh my gosh. I was sitting in there in the theater, I can still remember just being like, this is so stupid. So, I mean, it gets a little better when they cut away from all that crap and introduce this particular Amityville Horror's family, and Ryan Reynolds, of course, being the George Lutz character. And in retrospect, I thought it would have been how cool would it have been if they got Josh Brolin to have played that part? I mean, being the son of the guy who played him in the original movie, and also having that same kind of, Grizzly Adams appearance and stuff. I just think, it would have been just the coolest thing in the world if Josh Brolin had been this part, but alas, we're kind of stuck with Ryan Reynolds in the part of George Lutz, and I don't know who this woman is in the part of Kathy. They got the same number of kids. One of the boys is like a lot younger or a lot older than the other kids, which is wasn't how it was in the original movie, of course. And then you've got the young daughter who would, I didn't know who. Well, it was her first movie at the time, so obviously I didn't know who she'd become. But she's since become kind of an actress who's gotten lead parts in movies. Including that movie I reviewed. I can't even remember what it was called. Was it The Fifth Wave? I reviewed that. I got the Blu-ray for like $5 and reviewed that years ago. But so that's the family in this movie, and the Mrs. Lutz or whatever is kind of hot with some presumably natural breastage and a stomach, which I'm not sure you can have after having 3 kids. But I digress. So in probably what I would regard as probably some of the least painful scenes to watch in this movie, very much with like the beginning of, Amityville: A New Generation. The stuff that's easiest to watch and not, the least cringeworthy is just kind of the setup stuff and the getting to know the characters and them, happening upon the house and seeing the house and stuff. It should be said that, I'm assuming this is a real house. I don't know the history behind the making of this movie or what, but, the house that they got that has, the famous kind of Amityville, look on a part of the house is a cool house. I don't know, if this is a real house or if they made an addition, to this house to make it look like that one front part of the Amityville house. I don't know, but, I do like how the house looks, and for the first time pretty much since since 3D, since the third Amityville movie, we actually do get a little bit of harken back to at least a little bit of the look of the original house, which you got to respect that. And to be honest, it's one of the best things about this movie. So once we get the characters moved in and stuff, obviously we slowly kind of start the progression, of course, of George becoming, irritable and whatever, and the family members starting to see stuff. What I thought was just completely stupid about this movie, and in my opinion, it's got absolutely no real creative. I mean, like the first movie was creepy, and I can still watch the first movie and be creeped out by it to a certain extent, just by the use of music and kind of what you don't see. This movie just takes a complete 21st century approach, post-Grudge, if you will, and post, Japanese horror movies, to have things like the wet, slimy, or just, apparition of the young daughter with just the hair running down, just looking all Grudge character-ish and just being all scary, just appearing. So in this movie, it's like the house itself really isn't creepy, or nothing that's going on is necessarily creepy. The only thing that's creepy is just like seeing these apparitions and this girl and looking all scary, and later on there's like this zombie guy with the white eyes, and it's just like, what in the, this is so like the scares and the quote unquote what's supposed to be scary and shocking about this movie is nothing really involving the house or anything creepy like that. I mean, they only do like the fly scene once, and the flies look worse than they did in the original movie in this movie. I forgot about, basically, I mean, obviously not having seen this for quite a long time, I've forgotten how stupid just the attempts at scaring people in this movie are, using just scary dead girl and zombie guy and all this stupid kind of just trying to scare people through seeing stuff versus the good old days of trying to scare people without seeing stuff. Of course, me getting on in years, I mean, obviously, if having grown up with the former way of being scared in a movie, or how I would, think it's better to be done in a movie, obviously, I guess I'm going to side with that particular way, but that's just, my opinion on that matter. One of the things that was really stupid early on in the movie is, in the original movie, the young girl character has her friend Jodie, who in this movie, I don't know, if that, in this movie, Jodie is the young daughter of the DeFeos, who was shot dead by the older brother. I don't know if that's how it was supposed to have been in the original movie. I don't think you get that information in the original movie. All you hear is Jodie. But in this movie, it's, what I just said, and Jody is the victim of the DeFeo murders. And what's so stupid about this movie and completely takes the creep factor out of it is, like, you know, you'll see the daughter of the, you know, the Lutz daughter say, "Oh, Jody, you know, this or that," and then mom will ask her a question, and, you know, then the girl looks over at Jody, and you actually see this stupid, you know, slimy ghost girl go like, "No, don't tell her," you know, nodding or shaking her head or something, and then the girl looks back from the chair and looks at mom, you know, "I'm not supposed to tell her." I mean, it's just the most uncreative way you could, you know, convey this story, you know, this idea of this scary, you know, Jody ghost. I mean, it's much more scary to have a kid just looking at an empty chair, you know, and saying Jody's there or something, or "You scared Jody," you know, and that's much more creative and scary than actually, like, as an audience member, seeing this stupid apparition of this dead, you know, ghost kid in the chair. It's just like, give me a frickin' break. You know, not having seen this for a long time and not remembering much of it at all, I had to pretty much laugh out loud when they opened the door to reveal the babysitter in this movie. And in, you know, true Platinum Dunes fashion, if it's a female, she's got to be, you know, quote unquote hot and, you know, wearing jeans and like this top that's just shows all of her belly and stuff like that, and just tied up around her breasts, and just this absolute slut of a, you know, babysitter character in this movie I thought was just, oh my gosh, so funny. And luckily this takes place, like, you know, in 75 or something like that, pre-cell phone, so you don't have to, you know, spend the time seeing this bitch laying on the kid's bed on the phone. But, you know, this scene is, you know, obviously playing off the babysitter scene in the first one, and, you know, where this bitch is just a bitch and kind of, she's babysitting the kids and telling the older boy about, you know, I guess that was one aspect of the change that they made to this movie that was kind of cool, by having this bitch, you know, babysitter kind of tell the kid or slash kids about, you know, the creepy stuff that happened in the house that they weren't aware of. I mean, I guess that was kind of one of the better changes in this movie, of actually doing something, you know, that's not completely stupid. But, you know, again, seeing the babysitter dressed the way she was in this movie is just like, oh man, what a deal. You know, because it's in 2005 and everything's just got to be, you know, bigger and huger and larger than life and larger than it was in the previous movie, you know, the original movie, you know, they have to have this, you know, scene, which I thought is just dumb, and there's like no way the girl would even be able to get up on the roof. This kind of scene of the girl, the young daughter going up on the roof, and, you know, it's like, oh, Jody said if I kill myself I can see Daddy. Oh, that's another thing in this movie that they comment on, is we don't hear anything about the, you know, the father of the kids in the original movie, but in this movie they actually do. That's another thing that's about this movie that's maybe a little better. We kind of, you know, would have kind of been interesting to know, you know, in the original what the story was with the, you know, the father of the three kids. But in this movie, the father of the three kids has died. And there's actually this one part in this movie which I give the movie props for early on, after they're settled into the house, where, you know, George Lutz, you know, overhears the conversation between, you know, the Kathy Lutz and her oldest son about, you know, oh, I know you miss your dad, and, you know, George Lutz doesn't have to replace your dad, or because he doesn't, or whatever. And then the kid says something to the effect of, well, what about you? And the woman, Kathy's like, no, he doesn't. Does he replace Dad for you? And, or no one will ever replace Dad. And the kids, she says, and then the kid says, like, for you too? And she's like, yeah. So that was kind of, and George Lutz overheard that, and that was a really cool kind of a, you know, a great kind of stepping off point for George, you know, to begin his, you know, mental deterioration. And that was probably one of the single most creative thing about this movie, in my opinion. That line, I was just like, wow, there was actually a creative moment in the, you know, the screenplay of this movie. Holy cow, maybe it was just an accident, or maybe the screenwriter's kid came into the study and wrote that little bit or something like that when he wasn't looking. But I will say that little point was just like, ooh, wow, you know, overhearing that just after you bought this house and moved in together is kind of, you know, would kind of be unsettling, even for someone who didn't move into a possessed house. So as I was saying, the girl on the roof bit was just like, oh my gosh, give me a break. I mean, just you know the kid's not gonna die. I mean, whatever. It's just, you know, it's there for spectacle or whatever. One thing I will say about that scene is it was just kind of cool crane shot of coming up over the roof, and you do get a nice shot of the, if it's the river or whatever it is, the water in the distance there. So you know, that scene did, although it's stupid in its own right, I think, and just, you know, not necessary, it did provide some very scenic, pretty views. So I guess it's got that going for it. So for me, there is one thing about this remake that does improve on the original movie, and that is not completely, but greatly reducing the presence of like priests and just the church, you know, bureaucracy and the church bull that you know, it's my least favorite part of the original movie. The remake actually takes it upon itself to only have, like, maybe the last, I don't know, somewhere in the last half of the movie, to only have Kathy Lutz, instead of having this ongoing relationship with the father, like this happens in the original movie, and having her, having her aunt be a, you know, a nun and all this crap. There's only one part in the movie where Kathy calls this priest, I think never having met him, and calls him, and I don't know if she even says come to bless the house or not, but, you know, so that's, you know, one of the, I think, only 2 scenes we see with the priest, and then that ends, and then later on he just kind of arrives on his own or whatever to come do the famous scene where, you know, trying to bless the house, and the stupid computer-generated flies, which looks so much faker than anything in the 70s they could ever pull off, happens. So that is, for me, where this movie does improve on the original movie by exercising, or, you know, deleting or not including a lot of the, you know, the priest stuff, which I thought was, I don't know, even though Rod Steiger was so great as that character, I do kind of, every time it cuts to that crap in the original movie, I'm just like, I don't need this crap. So kudos to whoever made that creative decision in this movie to just, you know, really have abbreviated, you know, religious and or priest scenes. You know, bravo. You know, my gratitude is extended to you for that. Thank you. I guess another thing about this movie that perhaps is played maybe a little better than the original movie is there's the last act where, you know, the George Lutz character goes nuts and snaps and is appearing to, you know, have gone possessed. And one thing that I thought was stupid along the line with seeing so much of, you know, all this other creepy stuff is you actually kind of visually get to see him go down in the basement and kind of get, you know, visually we see him kind of get possessed or whatever, which I thought was just so stupid, you know, just showing audiences everything instead of leaving stuff to the imagination, I think is dumb. But what I did like about the last act of this movie was probably a little maybe better overall than, or of detail that I thought was better overall than, you know, the original movie, is that he really stays in, like, he seems a lot more of a threat to the family in this, at the end of this movie, than George does in the original. I think that, and he stays that way for quite a while as the family, as he's, you know, seemingly trying to kill family members and stuff, and they're running away from him and all that stuff. Like in the original movie, and I think I even commented on this in my review of it, is just like, I mean, I don't know, you have a basic, you know, idea or a thought that maybe he's, you know, a danger to the kids or the family, but I mean, it really ends really quickly once, you know, he takes a swing at Kathy and misses her, and then they're all of a sudden just happy family again. Whereas this movie, you know, it plays the George being the wanting to kill the family for a greater amount of time at the end of the movie, and he's a threat for a longer amount of time. So that is another thing about the remake that I kind of do think improves upon the original movie. And having the George Lutz character be much more of a threat to the kids in this movie and in the family in general than it was in the original movie. So that's another thing that I do think is better. But I mean, obviously, you know, I don't like the, you know, I mean, that's just a detail that I think is better. I don't like the way the movie ends, or really much about this movie more than the original, but just certain details I think they did get, you know, or did kind of improve on, and that's one of them. you know, I thought it was kind of weird at the end of the movie when instead of escaping in the van, they go down to the boathouse and basically, well, another thing that's kind of cool about this movie and the ending is that, you know, Kathy realizes that because early on in the movie, you know, instead of later towards the movie, like the first one early on in the movie, they get out and when they have the babysitter and they get out and get away from the house, and every time he goes away from the house to go out to dinner, George Lutz, or to go to the doctor, he's like, he always feels he always feels better. Like, I feel okay, I feel good now. So what's real, another good writing bit, you know, plot or point done by the writer was, you know, having the Kathy Lutz character realize at the end of the movie that she just had to get George away from the house and he'll be fine. And I thought it was really goofy. I guess it was just them doing something different, but that, you know, they all got in the boat and drove away in the boat. It was just kind of like not quite as convenient as driving away on, you know, in your vehicle, because at some point you're going to have to, you know, I don't know, either get out of the boat and get a taxi or get out of the boat and have to go back and get the vehicle from the house. So that's why that detail just really kind of made my eyes roll. Like, why are they escaping in a boat? They just have to come back and get their car anyway. So yeah, so, you know, throughout the whole movie, I'd say there were like 2 or 3, you know, details that maybe the writer did improve upon the original script. So, you know, you give them props for doing that anyway. As a whole, the movie, as a horror movie, quote-unquote horror movie, for me, you know, of course movies don't really scare me anyway, but I mean, as a quote-unquote horror movie is completely and totally lacking in any kind of creativity. All it did was flash scary images of, you know, dead ghost children or zombie flesh, you know, eating corpses or whatever the hell we see, just these kind of scary images of these scary whatever monsters and ghosts and stuff. Is the only thing the movie really kind of did to try to scare you. The one scene I thought was maybe one of the better haunting scenes is when George Lutz was taking a bath and, you know, the arms come around him and it's just like, ah, that was kind of cool and a little more of like a haunting than just, when you see a full body, just apparitions and just, you know, it's just so stupid to me. And zombie characters or dead girl characters, it's just, so seeing kind of just the arms, you know, kind of come around him in the tub and kind of reminiscent of, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street, of course, with the glove out of the water, it was just a little more cool than just seeing, you know, just like a scary zombie appear in front of you or something like that. So, obviously, you know, even though I said maybe I said some positive things about the movie. Obviously, it's a real kind of a snooze fest. Again, you know, the way the house looks, or they captured a little bit of the feel of the original house from the first 3 movies. I appreciated. You know, Ryan Reynolds with the beard was, you know, an okay George Lutz. Once again, Josh Brolin would have been so cool if if they would have got him to do it. I mean, how cool would that have been? So I'm only going to be able to give this movie 3/4 stars out of 4 stars. You know, obviously, having, as I already said, I think it's a snooze fest. It's a roll your eyes fest. Compared to movies that have come out since, I don't hate the way it looks. I don't think there's a lot of annoying. I don't remember it being like green or having any really crappy, stupid, unrealistic tinting, except maybe the opening scene with the DeFeo murders or whatever. I don't hate how it looks, and I kind of appreciated the 70s, you know, atmosphere and stuff like that, and it kind of was done well with the clothes and stuff. But overall, it's just a snooze fest and kind of a boring movie, and you know, all the things that I dislike about 21st century horror is, and maybe not all of them, but a lot of them are showcased here. You know, the kind of post-grudge Japanese horror influences and all this crap and whatever else, and jump scares and, you know, the house, although it you know, did have that familiar look, really didn't have much of a character like the house had in the first 3 movies for me. It's just like, oh, they're in this house and they see zombies and dead girls. Ooh, scary. So anyway, I'm going on and on and on. That's my review of Amityville Horror 2005. Thank you very much for watching this review, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one.